Okay. Children with dyslexia might need to have their learning process individually monitored, adjusted to suit their learning style. Teachers need to make observations of students' strengths and weaknesses, and try to obtain information from the child about his or her perceptions about difficult assignments and problems. Basically, what this means is that to have the child interact with what their learning processes are and see what they see as problems in their learning and what problems they see with different skills. The teacher also can begin having students tested for dyslexia or other disorders at any time. And then once they find out, they need to set up an individual education plan. Modifications to these plans and instructional materials may be necessary from time to time. No two students with dyslexia are alike. This means that just because one child has one form of dyslexia, the other child sitting next to them may not. One child may have a spatial disorder with dyslexia, the other child may have understanding awareness problems. Some students are visual learners, some are tactile learners, while others learn through application. These all need to be taken into consideration when developing an educational learning plan. Educators also need to be aware and trained on these techniques and how to implement them in everyday classroom use. Educating not only certified teachers, but also educational assistants and aides throughout the school would benefit all special education needs. Leaving these important members of the educational community out can be detrimental in helping those students in need. There's also an article available, Effective Language Arts Instruction for Students with Dyslexia, that can give insight to any educator, and it gives insight to typical children with dyslexia. Wadlington is the author, who provides some detailed strategies for teaching language arts to students. Some of her strategies for helping students with dyslexia include sequential and cumulative language concepts, phonemic awareness, highly structured, explicit, and intensive instruction in specific phonic rules. All these are very important to the learning process for dyslexia students. Through the interviews that I performed, it is recognized that training of teachers and also testing of children need to be implemented in the school system. Several times through my interview process, I found out that it was only understood that dyslexia was a problem. Many teachers didn't understand that dyslexia had many different forms. Dyslexia has a profound effect on students throughout their education. Not only is it a learning disability, it can also affect the child's self-esteem throughout their life. Implementing training in schools and recognition of this disorder is needed throughout the educational system. The mundane understanding of most educators is not enough to benefit children with dyslexia to perform to their potential. Does anyone have any questions?
How do we get more training and knowledge to the public on dyslexia and the different types of?
The best way to get more training would be to ask the school board system to implement more training within each school district and have them require it of all educators, and because there's not enough training. Like I said, through my interviews, the teachers that I interviewed had very limited knowledge of what dyslexia really is.
I don't understand fully what it is in different areas of the children. I mean,
Yes, each dyslexia is not only just where most people think it's just the swapping of letters.
Right, where they always thought it was just that. They'd make their
Right.
E's this way.
Right. They
instead
make
of-
their E's backwards or their
Right.
D's and B's, switch them back and
Right.
forth. That's not necessarily what it is. Dyslexia can be where when they're reading words across a page, they get lost and they are down, instead of on the one line, they're 3 lines down right from the middle of the page, right in the middle of the sentence. So that's a spatial disorder in dyslexia. And then there's also where the letters actually, they're reading along and their letters jump across the page. Or they'll float. And that's another disorder. That's part of being spatial. And there's also the dyslexia disorder where they can read the words, but they have no idea what they mean because of a how did I put it?
Just a function of these words going different
Right. They
places.
That's called spatial. There's auditory linguistic.
Okay.
Okay, and that's where they recognize words, but they can't sound them out, or they can't understand what the meaning of the words are.
Okay, let me ask you this.
And it could be just basic words.
When a child is reading a book, let's say there's, this is a book. Okay, do they still, or is it common for them? Each one of these is a sentence,
Right.
to put under here a marker and then pull down to the next line and then a guide,
Right, a guide.
Do
Use
they-
a paper as a guide,
or
Right.
a marker.
or a
Do
ruler. Most of the time it's a ruler they usually
they
use.
use.
That is one technique that they've implied
Get out of
that
there.
they need to
Come on.
use as especially with the kids with a spatial disorder. And it's called visual spatial dysnausea, and that's
Okay.
kind of like what I have. And that's why when I read,
when you
I turn my book upside down and I read
Yeah.
left or right to left
okay
and
Yeah.
go up, because that makes everything pull in a different direction, and so I can concentrate better on it.
so it does help for a child to learning to read and stuff
For some children, yes.
to use, and there's nothing wrong with them using a marker.
No.
Okay.
It depends on what
Oh,
the
just use it.
disability of the child is.
Okay.
So each child is different, so different
See, I
techniques have to
never
be used.
fully understood
Right.
what dyslexia was.
Right, and so there's many different types of dyslexia, and that's the main point of my presentation, is that there's so many different types of dyslexia
Types of it.
that just generalizing them and saying, okay, well, this kid has dyslexia and he just switches his letters is not
The
what it's all about.
Yeah, that's not the only problem
right.
with I can't even say it.
Dyslexia, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's all.
and it definitely needs to be, more education needs to be given on this to all educators, and not just the teachers, their assistants, the
Right.
principals, the superintendents, all of them need more
Because you're
education
hearing
on it.
more and more about these little ones having this disorder.
Right.
They
Well, I mean, the word is common knowledge nowadays,
Yeah.
but,
years ago it wasn't.
right,
We never heard of that.
nobody
word.
really knows what it is. Like I
Yeah.
said, I did an interview with teachers at my school. There's 67 staff members at my school. 2 of us have dyslexia.
Mhm.
The rest of them are like, yeah, I know what it is, but I don't know anything about it. And that was it.
That's it.
Okay, any more questions?
Nope.